Police say this is the house a young child escaped from and went to a neighbor's house asking for food and water. They said that that child was severely malnourished along with another one they found inside the same home.
The second that Ruby was proudly gloating, wiggling her finger, celebrating her incredible parenting of just depriving her children of food as a punishment, that should have been enough to get authorities involved and learn about what was actually happening here.
Franke ran a YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, where she documented her family's life.
I think that there will be a lot of chaos when children grow older and realize that what their parents did to them for so many years was messed up, milking them for views online and treating them in these horrible ways and exposing their privacy.
But in my opinion, anybody who's willing to exploit their child for views like every single family channel does is not right in the head, and there's something strange going on there. They're just it.
I know the internet can be over dramatic sometimes and filled up with a lot of dumb shit. But sometimes the internet can also be used for good things, because the entire internet came together and exposed this woman with all these clips and whatever, and she deleted the channel so she could delete all the proof. But people screen recording these clips and sharing them everywhere. There's now a lot of proof where if the judge wants proof, all he has to do is go to TikTok and it's filled with videos.
Another day, another video. Why am I not surprised? Anyway, hello everybody, and today I'm going to be talking about 8 Passengers. Now, if you don't know who 8 Passengers is, or more specifically Ruby Franke, 8 Passengers is a family blogging channel. Yeah, no surprise there. Anyway, with the recent news that Ruby Franke just got arrested, I knew that I just had to cover the full story. So anyway, with that said, let's begin. Before I talk about 8 Passengers, I'm going to talk about the entire family blogging industry as a whole. Family blogging industry, yeah, whatever you want to call it. I don't understand why I said industry. I'm just gonna go with it. So, family blogging channels basically just like take advantage of their children. And most of the time, if not almost all of the time, it's against their will. They take advantage of their kids. They control their kids. They make money out of their own kids. And in some instances, even their own children. With that cleared out of the way, let's talk about 8 Passengers. 8 Passengers is a family blogging channel. And much like every other family vlogging channel, they record their kids against their will. Now, here is one thing that I will mention. I will be censoring the children's faces out because obviously it was done against their will, like I said before. If you see these black scribbles, that's why. Arguably, I say that 8 Passengers is even more shady than any other family blogging channel. Sorry that I couldn't necessarily find more about 8 Passengers' introduction. It's just because most of the clips were heavily edited, and another thing is that their channel is deleted, so I don't have enough evidence. Wow, that was a short chapter. Anyway, back to the next chapter. What's an obvious problem with 8 Passengers, and especially Ruby, is that Ruby has some really, and I mean really, strict parenting. And I mean like so strict to the point where it's genuinely disgusting.
I'm only going to say it one more time, and then you're going to lose the privilege to eat dinner.
Ah, yes, that definitely sounds like good parenting. Please, give her an Oscar. Now look, food is not a privilege. Surviving is not a privilege. It's something you need. Eating dinner is something you need to survive. But wait, it only gets worse from there. You see, when Ruby's 6-year-old daughter forgot to bring lunch, she just said that she's going to need to be hungry. And no, I'm not making this up. There's actual footage of this. Oh my god.
Message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. And hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
Look, if you expect a 6-year-old, a literal 6-year-old, to remember packing lunch, then you're just kind of an idiot. And by kind of, I mean absolutely are. And you're just saying hopefully nobody gives her food? Ma'am, do you want your daughter to starve? Although Ruby said the interview that she has a 45-minute drive from their house and that Eve has 2 hours of school left, that doesn't make it an excuse. Because Eve just went an entire school day without any lunch. But wait, it happened another time with one of Ruby's younger sons forgetting his lunch.
To tell you this, honey, but unless you find a friend who's willing to share some of their food with you, I don't think you're going to be able to eat. But if you're not responsible for your lunch and your lunch money, that's the natural consequence. And I'm really sorry you're learning this the hard way. I will have a wonderful, yummy snack. Just hang in there today and just make up your mind. You're going to be really careful and make sure you grab your stuff when you go to school next time. And maybe you have a good friend who will share some of their sandwich with you or something. Russell, I'm really sorry. He sounded like he was going to cry.
Aren't 6-year-olds like what, in the first grade learning their vowels? I'm pretty sure that stuff like this, they can forget about that easily. They're young. That's why. Do I have to explain it again? Another controversy was regarding Chad. Chad was sent to Anastasia Wilderness Camp. And if you don't know what that is, I'll talk about it later. But however, Ruby and Kevin, her husband, decided to send Chad to that camp. And I'll discuss why this is a problem and the troubled teen industry in a few. And if you want me to make a video about the troubled teen industry, let me know. And keep in mind, that was when Chad was just kicked out of a really, really strict school. I'll talk about Kevin a little bit more because I haven't covered him. I only covered Ruby. But however, just because I didn't cover Kevin as much does not mean that I don't think he's equally as bad. He's just reinforcing this abuse to his kids. And I still think either way that is disgusting. And he still should be in a jail cell with Ruby. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin had all these cruel punishments for his kids.
Okay, so you're probably wondering what the heck we're talking about. Chad today has just entered the Anasazi Foundation Wilderness Therapy Program, where he's going to spend the next 8 to 10 weeks living in the
Anasazi Desert.
Yeah, the desert mountains of Arizona.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Really? Really, you think that this is a good idea? There are people who have died in these camps. And in case if you don't know, wilderness therapy programs are part of the troubled teen industry. Like I said, I'm not going to talk that much about the troubled teen industry, but to summarize, they disguise themselves as helping teens with mental health issues, but they actually abuse them. And in some circumstances like this,
I was told that no force would ever be used. 6 days into the program, I got a phone call from the director that my son was having trouble breathing and to stay by the phone. 15 minutes later, I got a phone call that he was being life-flighted to the hospital. My husband and I were on our way to the hospital when we got a call from the doctor and asked us to pull over, and the doctor got on the phone and said that he couldn't save him and he was sorry. My son died after being at the wilderness therapy for 6 days.
They can end up dead. Anyway, with that said, let's just talk about the next video.
We got accused of child and we sent Chad to Anasazi. Guess what? The first thing that they did was take a bed away. They don't have beds. So Chad slept on the hard ground for months, and it's run by psychologists and therapists.
How come you know about this and yet still you sent him to that program? That is proven to end life. And when people were very obviously concerned about Chad, Ruby and Kevin decided to make this response, which honestly, it's just terrible.
So we've learned through experience that when people get triggered or get upset by something, it usually is because that something means something about them.
Telling your audience to look inward when they're just concerned about your son? I'm done here. I'm done. After Chad returned from Anastasia, he played a prank on his brother, convincing him that he was going to Disneyland, even though he wasn't. And for punishment, Ruby made Chad sleep on a beanbag chair. Not even a couch, I remind you. A chair for 7 months. I don't understand. Who would think that this was a good idea? Just for a prank. Really? Really? In one video, she said to have made millions, and I mean millions of dollars. And considering the context, it just feels wrong. And I mean very.
And I'm telling you, I was making millions.
Look, if you're making millions of dollars off of your kids, exploiting your kids, abusing your kids, sending your kids to dangerous programs, then you shouldn't be a parent. You shouldn't. That's just my opinion, however. I'm pretty sure no one will probably agree with me. I could talk more and more about Ruby's shady parenting, but we'd be here all day. However, I will discuss a few more. One clip is Ruby stalling to take her daughter to the hospital. She's literally just like waiting it out and letting her daughter suffer. She even admitted this.
I have been stalling in my bathroom. I took an hour-long shower and just cleaned in the shower. And he's like, I think we need to take Sherry to the emergency room. I'm cleaning the countertops, mopping the floor. I'm stalling. I think Kevin and I are going to take Sherry to the emergency room today. Let me take a shower and then I'll be out. It's been an hour, so.
How bad of a parent do you have to be to wait for your daughter to go to the hospital? How messed up do you have to be in general to just like wait for somebody to go to the hospital? Wait out what? Wait out what? When Ruby's daughter wet the bed, this is what happens. Roll clip. I can't do this anymore.
He's the bed maybe like once every 8 months. Like, it's been a very long time since she wet the bed. I was like, oh, darn it, that's all right. Just go sleep on the floor in the bathroom.
One, that is way too harsh. And 2, I'm pretty sure that is child neglect. Not giving him a bed. That is child neglect. Believe it or not, a bed is not a privilege. It's something you need. I tried sleeping without a bed on the hard floor. And keep in mind, that was on my own free will. And I slept there for a few weeks. Guess what? I got headaches, my back hurted, everything. Just everything. And yes, Ruby, child neglect is a form of child abuse. Oh yeah, speaking of that, Ruby Franke was in a talk show. I do not know what the talk show is, don't ask me. But however, she said this, and it obviously made the host uncomfortable, and it haunts me.
A year ago, my daughter was saying her prayers. Eve, she was 6 years old at the time, and she was saying her prayers, and she said the cutest thing. I thought it was so cute, and I started laughing. She said, "Dear Heavenly Father, please help me to survive." And I thought it was so cute, and it just took me off guard, and I kind of giggled a little. That was an experience for her, and she melted. She was angry, and she started.
Ruby, that is not cute. That is disgusting. I'm pretty sure you and me both have different definitions of that word. And personally for me, I don't think the word cute means a child literally begging to survive. This is obviously messed up. You could clearly tell that Ruby Franke is a sociopath. And with all that said, let's move on to the next chapter. In case you don't know about Connexions, Connexions is basically about trying to help with relationships. And why am I mentioning Connexions, you may ask? Well, it's because Ruby is in Connexions. You see, the days of her family blogging channel are over, and she needed to find a job. So, of course, she worked with Jody, and together they both give parenting advice for other parents. Really scary. to think how much other parents have been misled because of these two. And their parenting advice is automatically just even worse.
Your daughter is not losing control over her eating habits. Your daughter is choosing to be deceitful around her eating choices. And you're choosing to make this about the eating. I have news for you. This daughter does not have an eating problem. This daughter has an identity problem.
Please say that's gonna be the only clip. Please say that's gonna be the only clip.
If you don't want to have a baby, then do not use your agency to engage in sexual contact. Now, when I say what I'm talking about is you engage in a sexual relationship and then you may say stop. And the person's like, I'm not stopping. I'm going to take what I want.
We are surrounded quite literally by people who are not learning principles of truth.
What an amazing woman that she was willing to stand.
I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. In one video that I managed to find, it turns out that Ruby did change her ways on parenting, but not for the reasons that you might think. You see, things are best left to the clip.
I was a hugely disconnected, selfish, aggressive, neglectful mother.
Entitled.
I wanted my kids to be happy, which AKA translated into, I want my kids to get off my back.
Doesn't sound like you care about your kids. You don't even care about your kids at all.
Because I want to do what I want to do. I want to be able to go to Target. I want to be able to shop. I want to be able to have a moment of silence where I can just think. It was all about me. And I made my kids responsible for that.
Here's what Ruby said that I mentioned in the last clip. I will be playing out the longer version, however, just to give you some context.
You wonder where I've been on my vlogs? You wonder why I left YouTube? It's to save my kids. No amount of money. And I'm telling you, I was making millions. And I left it because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt. With people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand. And fortunately, I had a chance. I had them in my home long enough to do it, and I'm not going to lose them. They're seeing truth, they're accepting truth, they're loving truth.
They were being hurt because they someone. I mean, they were being hurt with entitlement. Yeah, money. My money's bad, guys. Don't be rich. Please don't get money. My money's bad. Bad money. And she looked back on the last few years as if she wasn't strict enough. What do you mean not strict enough? That isn't strict. That is neglect. And it is a form of child abuse. And you doubt that wasn't strict enough? Just because one of your children watched The Walking Dead?
Me allowing my child to watch The Walking Dead was me being selfish because I didn't want to ruffle the distortion inside of my child, which meant I knew if I said no, he was going to get mad, and I just, I don't want to deal with the kids being mad. That's my selfishness. And I didn't get curious about what was in the show. I didn't ever sit down and watch it. I was such a disconnected mother. I need to repent for being so selfish. I was a hugely disconnected, selfish, aggressive, neglectful mother.
Entitled.
I wanted my kids to be happy, which AKA translated into, I want my kids to get off my back.
That's humble. She's telling you, I was in distortion. I was harming my kids. I was being
being super neglectful in the area that I wasn't bringing truth into my home.
Yeah, this is what she meant. Like, she was a controlling, narcissistic mother, allowing her child to watch The Walking Dead. Like, are you kidding me? There are far worse things that you did, and the worst thing is you letting your child watch The Walking Dead? Are you kidding? And then Ruby gives out advice like this.
I have 4 walls in the bathroom. That gives privacy. When my child begins using those 4 walls to do things that are deceptive, they lose the privilege of privacy. Why? Because they're not concerned about privacy. That is the last thing they're concerned about. They're just trying to hold that word over your head. they're trying to hold you hostage, saying, you need to give me privacy. You need to honor my boundaries. You need to honor my feelings. You don't care about me.
I actually feel bad for Ruby's children. Privacy being treated as a privilege? That is a right! And Ruby, I'm pretty sure you don't give your children any privacy at all. I have to censor their faces. Why would you think that this is a good idea? Just why? I need to know. Why would you think that this is okay? This is not okay. Also, Jody, don't think I've forgotten about you. She said some really, and I mean really homophobic things, like comparing same-sex marriage to pedophiles.
And people will say, well, homosexuality is not the same as okay, it may not be the same thing, but what is the same thing is deviancy.
I'm pretty sure something consensual is not the same thing as something non-consensual. I'm just saying. Believe it or not, that's not the only homophobic thing she said. She also said that AIDS are part of the LGBTQ community. Like, no, it has nothing to do with the LGBTQ plus community. It has something to do with unprotected sex. Now let's talk about the moment that all of you have been waiting for. Just straight up researching this, recording this, just everything. It just all felt disgusting. It just, I don't know. Something about it, it just feels really, really unsettling. Did I mention that Jody is also ableist? No? Well, okay. Here's the clip.
You know, people used to be called and there was no negative connotation to that, but someone or some group put negative connotation onto, and some of you are cringing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she just said that. And there's nothing bad about it, just means slow. I'm in several areas, like baking's one of them. I'm 50 years old, I didn't know what a sieve was. That's a little slow.
Dude, Jody, they're the reason why people don't use that word anymore. It's the exact same thing as the N-word. It's a slur! Another thing that I noticed that they constantly repeat the phrases, it's truth and it's distortion, truth and distortion, over and over again. It just feels like I'm being brainwashed, you know?
Truth and there's distortion. That's it.
And I have been a mother in distortion more years than I've been a mother in truth.
You see what I mean? Anyway, time for the next chapter. The most recent case is Ruby and Jody being arrested for child abuse. To start off, I'm gonna read from the New York Times, and then I'm gonna show some footage. A Utah mother who chronicled her strict parenting style on YouTube and other social media channels was arrested and charged of aggravated child this week after one of her children climbed out a window and ran to a nearby house seeking help, officials said. Ruby Franke, 41, was arrested on Wednesday in Ivis, a city in southern Utah, at the home of Jody Hildebrand, her business partner, who was also arrested. Ms. Franke hosted a now-defunct YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, where she posted videos about her parenting approach of her 6 children, including refusing them food as a form of punishment. Ms. Franke and Ms. Hildebrand were each charged on Friday with 6 counts of aggravated child according to the Washington County Attorney's Office. Each count carried a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison and a fine up to $10,000, the attorney's office said. According to an affidavit, Ms. Franke's 12-year-old son, identified as RF in the document, climbed out of a window in Ms. Hildebrand's home and went to a neighbor's house on Wednesday morning, asking for food and water. The child had duct tape on his ankles and wrists, as well as open wounds. He appeared to be emaciated and malnourished. The neighbor called the police, which then found Ms. Franke's 10-year-old daughter, Eve, at Ms. Hildebrand's. She also appeared to be malnourished, the affidavit said. Both children were taken to a hospital. The boy was placed on medical hold due to his deep lacerations from being tied up with the rope and from his malnourishment, according to the affidavit. Ms. Franke was seen on a YouTube video filming in Ms. Hildebrand's home that was posted 2 days ago, the affidavit said, adding that Ms. Franke and Ms. Hildebrand, 54, had knowledge of the abuse, malnourishment, and neglect. That is all I can read before snapping out. This is much more than just like a family blogging channel. It has gone from just that to so much worse. And plus, the signs were already there. At one point, I'm happy that she got arrested for what she did. But on the other hand, it happened way too late. The signs were already there for years and years and years, and nobody noticed that until the children literally almost died.
Malnourished 12-year-old child crawled out of the window of Hildebrand's Ivans area home. A neighbor called 911 when he showed up at their house asking for food and water.
In the Daily Mail, Ruby made outrageous, and I mean outrageous claims about their behavior and accusing them of SA. Now keep in mind, this is Ruby Franke we're talking about, so I don't believe her. And unless they were like serial killers, then there's no reason to be tying your children up to the point where they have to go to the hospital. Now let me just play a 911 clip.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he says he just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his leg, he's hungry, and he has duct tape around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around it. Oh, and he has them around his ankle, and his wrist as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered.
Guys, making this video is actually frustrating to make. From the fact that somebody could get away with this for this long, their children, it's just disgusting. It is honestly just disgusting. And from the fact that law enforcement didn't do anything about it until much later, and keep in mind, they responded to the Franke's home more than a dozen times over the last few years. There's also juvenile problems in 2018 and welfare checks in 2022. You see, this is what I mean by, on one hand, I'm happy that Ruby Franke got arrested, but on the other hand, I'm just disappointed that law enforcement didn't just step in sooner. And by the way, here's a YouTube W. They had terminated 2 channels relating to Ruby Franke. They also terminated the Connexions account. At least that's what I know, because the Connexions account is no longer there. And with that said, it's time for the next chapter. Now there have been a few responses, and the only 2 I will be covering, or the only ones that I know about, are Bonnie Hulihan and Sherry, whom the latter is Ruby Franke's oldest child. Both Bonnie and Sherry have their own platforms, and when they heard about this, they spoke out about it. Let's talk about Sherry's post first. Her first Instagram post states, "Finally." Another post says, "Hi all, today has been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police CBS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers and respect their privacy." The other one I'm going to be talking about is Bonnie, Ruby's sister. And what she said there was genuinely heartbreaking.
It was complete indoctrination.
She says, as an aunt, she did everything legally possible to protect the children.
And for those that were saying that they'd go in and bust down doors and do whatever it took to end up in jail, because from jail, I can't do anything.
Oh yeah, and here's some other things that she said to prove that she absolutely does not care about Ruby's children.
What my family and I have gone through the last couple of weeks is the worst thing that has ever happened to us.
Except here's the thing, it didn't happen to you, it didn't happen to the family, it happened to Ruby's children. And from the fact that you said that you wouldn't be doing anything because of jail time, seriously, how heartless of an individual do you have to be? And it's not just Bonnie either, it's also Ruby's other sister, Julie. And honestly, it's just the entire family as a whole. They didn't even do anything to protect Ruby's children. They simply did not care. And I don't think that they actually cared, because not only do they feel so soulless, but they also didn't intervene sooner. Next up is Julie's response.
We all saw it. We all felt weird about this Jody lady. We weren't comfortable with it. We didn't like it. We didn't like the teachings Ruby was bringing to the family functions, and we were this close to telling her, if you come to our family events anymore, we do not want to hear what you were learning through Connexions because we don't like it. We never did say that to her, but we thought it.
Then maybe, I don't know, talk with Ruby before she immediately cuts you off? And I know that Bonnie and Julie are not entirely responsible for Ruby's actions. I still believe that Ruby's actions are disgusting. However, for the fact that they didn't even do anything, I don't know, call CPS, for the fact that Sherry was the only one who did anything, it's just sad. And now is going to be the final chapter. There's really not much to say since I'm just so angry and disappointed. From the fact that nobody is doing anything, and from the fact that law enforcement just skirted over it several times, like it's nothing, even though there's several inspections, and even though Ruby's family knew that Ruby was her children, they didn't do a single thing until now. And that's what frustrates me. That is genuinely what frustrates me. I just have to get this one out. I hope the YouTube community wakes up and realizes that, yeah, family blogging content is bad. Because if 8 passengers can get away from this for so long, then what about the other channels? What about the Prince family? What about the LeBron family? What about those families that exploit their kids for money? I honestly don't think you're a normal person if you're willing to stoop this low to the point where you have to exploit your child and straight up just take their childhood away from them. Every single embarrassing moment, every single happy thing, every single embarrassing thing, they're all posted on camera. All of them. And since it's online, it's gonna stay there forever. Doesn't matter if you delete it or not. There is still evidence, and you will still be shown. And I don't think that's normal. Unless it's on the child's own free will, then I do not think that it's good. I don't think that. I do not think that it is good at all. And I hope that this and the Daddy05 incident earlier proves to YouTube that Yes, family blogging channels are wrong. Yes, they need to have some investigations. And yes, new laws need to be passed against family blogging content. Another thing, if you want to record with your husband, your dog, or whatever, yeah, do it. I really don't care. But leave your kids out of this. Just leave them out of it. Because you are doing far much more harm to theirs than yours. Hope you enjoyed the video, and even if you didn't, that's okay. And with that said, see ya. Hopefully not talking about another family blogging channel.